Gear up for Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. It's your final word on sports all across the state. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now here are your hosts, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
Apologize to the majority of our guys because they do prepare the right way. They do approach things the right way. They do try. They do give great effort. They do have great buy-in. They do try to play with toughness. They do try and play with great discipline in what they do. But we've got some guys that don't. And it is what it is in situations, and we're trying to do the best we can do at some positions. And those guys got to improve. And so that was, to me, was the most disappointing.
Well, maybe being inside the friendly confines of Williams-Brice Stadium for a change will help out the Gamecocks on Saturday as they take on East Carolina in their home opener, and Will Muschamp won't have as much to complain about this time around. Welcome into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network on this Thursday night. Good to have you with us. Phil Kornbluth on location, not too far from downtown Columbia, actually over in the Five Points area. Just down from the USC campus, we are here at the special invitation of our good friend and Sports Talk contributor, Steve Tannehill. We're at his new business location, Tannehill's Group Therapy. And if you have been a USC student or you are a USC student, you know what group therapy has meant to the university and to the city of Columbia and perhaps to the entire state. The way it has helped molded many individuals in position of power and influence in our state. So we are here because they're having a happy hour for former Gamecock football players. Letterman, Jeff Grants is here, and so we'll chat with him a little bit later. Of course, Steve will join us at the bottom of the hour, the coach and the quarterback, as they break down USC and Clemson from last week, look ahead to this coming week, as well as other issues in college football. And we will have also more for you getting ready for South Carolina and East Carolina. We're going to hear from the Gamecocks' Bryson Allen Williams, as well as from the Pirates head coach, Scotty Montgomery. So we got a bunch of stuff for you, recruiting as well on this Thursday night. Your phone calls, too, 800-956-7266, the number. Our email talkback@sportstalksc.com and on Twitter @SportsTalkSC. And let me remind you, too, something new that we just unveiled last weekend, but we really haven't talked about a lot. We will talk a lot about it now moving forward. It's the ingeniously named garbage line. Okay, you want to talk trash? Well, we've got a garbage line for you anytime over the weekend or anytime during the week, for that matter, when you can't reach out to us over the phones, via Twitter, through an email, but you got something you want to say, get off your chest, or a question or an observation, 803-509-2705. That's 803-509-2705. I'm trying to think of something, how I can relate these digits to you. 50, think of 50 because 50 is halfway to 100, and then 9 because of Bill Elliott, and then 27 Yankees, and 05 is just 05, okay?
Yeah.
803-509. That's how I used to do math, K-Mac, when I was an A student in Latta Primary School.
Oh, goodness. So you probably confused everybody else. Corn's math, not new math.
Corn actually invented Common Core. A lot of people don't know that.
I have no idea what that is. I've heard it, but I don't know what it is. All right, so that's what's on the agenda tonight for everybody. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. So South Carolina getting ready for East Carolina, Clemson getting ready for South Carolina State. And I got a chance last night to finally sit down and watch the Clemson Troy game. And, boy, I tell you what, I didn't realize just from reading about it and hearing people talk about it and hearing K-Mac's review of the game, in my eyes, just how poorly Clemson played on both sides of the ball and in special teams. They made mistake after mistake after mistake. And to sum it up, in my eyes, they look like an unfocused football team. They're making mistakes very undisciplined mistakes and, dropping the ball before crossing the goal line. Deshaun Watson just overthrowing open receivers, and not by a little bit, by a lot. Penalties at bad times. Guys, they just looked very unfocused, not very disciplined to me in watching that game.
I mean, I don't know about unfocused. They look like they were just off a tick to me, and Watson was scrambling around a lot, more than he probably should have been. The offensive line didn't play well up front. It all starts there. Their tempo was not what it normally is. This Clemson speed that we're used to seeing in terms of getting to the line of scrimmage, snapping the ball as quickly as possible, that was not going at the pace that we're used to seeing lately. And I know Troy was doing some things. They had the old lay down on the field if you're winded so we can get a sub in there to slow them down. They were stalling, but that aside, they still weren't where they needed to be. They weren't sharp. I mean, in the drop passes, I do think there was some frustration setting in there with Watson. I think he was pressing. Some other guys started pressing. But, I still – we can talk about it over and over, and, they're not playing up to the level that they're capable of. I don't think there's any denying that. Anybody would tell you that, even Clemson and Dabo Swinney. They're going to figure it out. I think that's the big issue. When you look at their problems and you go, do they have problems that cannot be corrected? Do they have personnel issues? Do they have injury issues or holes where they're going to have to get new players in there to fix those problems? No. They have everything they need to be successful with that offense. They just have to put it together. And I think I feel bad for Buddy Pugh in South Carolina State, because I think that weekend will start now. I would suspect that Clemson is going to put the hammer down. Now, if they sputter around this weekend and they only score 28, 30 points, okay, worry. But I think they're going to put a big number on the board on Saturday.
Well, the
big limb, right?
Yeah, the big key is why so many people – you look at Nick Saban's team and how Alabama plays. It's a tremendous standard you have to reach in knowing that the intensity you played with last year to get where you are is not the same intensity you have to play with that next year. It's almost like you have to refocus on being hungry again. And right now, Clemson looks like a team that's walking to the buffet table after they've just went to a 5-star restaurant. Yeah, we've eaten there, and we got a lot more we want to eat, but we're feeling kind of full right now. In other words, maybe full of ourselves, and they have to get hungry again, because they're going to run into a couple of teams down the road, Louisville and Florida State, that's very hungry. And so they have to match and even overachieve their intensity, and that'll be tough the way they're psychologically playing right now.
Well, we'll see if they get it together starting a Saturday against South Carolina State. But, again, that is not very useful in judging this Clemson team. The next one at Georgia Tech will certainly is much more of a litmus test now for Clemson, even though I don't want to take away anything from the win at Auburn, because I think Auburn is going to surprise some people here down the road based on what I saw with their defense. And it looks like maybe Shaun White's going to settle in as their quarterback. So they may beat some people down the road. That was a good win for Clemson, though it was not the dominating blowout kind of win that people thought. And so we go back to why is Clemson struggling here 2 games in? It's early. I agree with that. Let's be patient. If they don't handily beat Georgia Tech in Atlanta on Thursday night, a week from tonight, then I think some flags will go up. As for the Gamecocks, a game at home against a very good offensive team, this is going to be a supreme test for their secondary and their pass rush. Can they put pressure on this quarterback, Nelson? Can they come up with some interceptions in a secondary that is a little bit decimated not decimated, a bit short because of injuries and not tackling well as of last week? And then offensively, I think it's going to be the Brandon McElwain show at home. How will he get into the flow, and how long will they stick with him if it doesn't click right away? Questions to ponder on this Thursday night here on Sports Talk 800-956-7266. We'll be back. It's a Thursday edition of Sports Talk. Phil Kornblut and 5 points at Steve Tannehill's Group Therapy. Good to be here. A bunch of former USC football players are here. I see Jimmy Mitchell over across the way there. Looks like he could still go and catch the crossing pattern and take it the distance. Saw Jeff Grant's in there. He'll come by here in a little bit. Always enjoyed talking to the former Gamecock great quarterback. You know, I often think Gamecocks, when they feature their former players, you always see George, you always see Sterling. Jeff Grant should be up on that board as well. I mean, it's one of the all-time great USC quarterbacks, one of the all-time great USC football players and baseball players too. He should be right up there on that USC Taj Mahal with the rest of those guys. Okay, let's welcome in Mike Morgan. Morgan on the move here on this Thursday edition of Sports Talk as he joins us at this time every Thursday night, brought to you by Play It Again Sports right here in Columbia. Chris Mosley and the gang there. They have everything you need in the way of golf equipment, fitness equipment, water sports, and more. Located at Bauer Parkway in Harbison. Buy, sell, and trade what you want. And by Founders Federal Credit Union. Check out foundersfcu.com. Learn how they can assist you in all of your financial needs. We welcome in Mike Morgan, one of ESPN's prime announcers, to Sports Talk for his weekly visit. We were just talking about Clemson and their struggles against Troy, and 2 weeks in a row they've won, which is fine, but they haven't looked like a top 2 team. You think the Tigers have some concerns, any reason to be worried about what's ahead?
I must start off with the fact that I really enjoy the conversation on canned tuna over the break. But you'll let your listeners in on that later on the show, I'm sure. That was good stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you have to be a little bit concerned about how all of a sudden the offense, which I thought would be good for 30 a night, is all of a sudden struggling against 2 teams that I thought they'd certainly get 30-plus against. But at some point, Deshaun Watson is going to start looking like Deshaun Watson, I have to feel like. That receiving core is going to back offense over there. So, you know, maybe they were a little bit bored on Saturday. Maybe they were a little bit surprised by what Auburn could do the previous Saturday. But one thing's for sure, I think you'll see a much better team when they start getting to the meatier part of that schedule.
You are living right there in Atlanta. Of course, Clemson's got Georgia Tech coming up a week from tonight on a short week. I'm sure they've spent some time this week taking a look at Tech and getting ready for that triple option. But Tech is 2-0. Do people around the Tech program feel like Paul Johnson's got it back in the right direction this year?
No. I don't think the fan base of Georgia Tech is sold on Paul Johnson. If you look at what the victories have been over, I don't think there's a whole lot of reason to get too excited just yet. Look, the thing about Tech is, since Paul's been there in general, when you expect them to be good, they're majorly disappointing. And then when you completely count them out and decide that you're so sick of Paul Johnson and his offense, that's when he does spring ahead and come out of nowhere with a pretty good season. And that would potentially be the case this year. I'm not seeing it just yet. I need a little bit more than that. Everybody knows about his offense, and yes, it's tough to prepare for, and yes, nobody on the defensive line likes to face those blockers. Getting cut blocked for 3.5 hours is never a fun Saturday, or Thursday. But I just think that when you size up the ACC, Georgia Tech is where it's normally going to be, which is not really in contention for a title. You got 3 juggernauts in that league, and I don't think Georgia Tech is anywhere in the class of those 3.
All right, to the Gamecocks now. They got manhandled at Mississippi State, really just abused on both sides of the line. And what do you think Will Muschamp can do? He talks a great game about physicality and hard hitting and being tough, but if the players aren't following through, those are just empty words. Can you see him getting his team this year to the point where it can go man-to-man with some of these bigger, tougher teams?
That's a good question. You know,